Managing Director of Paragon Trust Company and tax and private client practitioner, joins us to bring a common sense approach to money in a world of total insanity. Let's welcome Tony D'Angelo.
All right, so the one and only Tony D is joining us as he does each and every Tuesday. I want to start out by actually thanking Tony D because it was, as I said in my monologue, the opening monologue this morning, it was Tony who gave me the idea for last week's column that I put in the day about how crooked Joe Biden is and how they're going to go after you a number of different ways. First, Tony, thank you for that, and good morning.
And good morning. I'm proud to be among you.
So where do you want to start? Right there?
Well, and actually, you know, in reading your most excellent column, the thing that really got me was the amount of really just bile that was thrown about how evil capitalism is. And I'm saying to myself, I guess capitalism is not good, but social welfare is. Well, how does social welfare get paid? It gets paid through the tax dollars of people who are capitalistic. I'll leave that right there. It just, I feel like the robot on Lost in Space. It just does not compute.
Well,
but anyway, let's, people want to hear about middle-class Joe.
Yeah.
I was reading something. John Kasich wrote this. I used to like John Kasich. I don't anymore. In the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette this past August, Joe understands the hopes and dreams of the common man. He's middle-class Joe, and the common woman, a man who could help us see the humanity, and he knows the path to a restored and rejuvenated America and the common purpose for everyone. Sounds wonderful. But, because basically we do need a little humanity in this society. I'm the first to say it. But let's really take a hard look at Joe, which, honestly, I've read the articles. People writing them have no idea what they're talking about. I've watched the shows and just want to give you some basic facts. And this is taken from the Biden tax returns, which are on his site. I'll post the slides later in your stream. 2016, Joe is vice president. He has very, very, very modest rental income, on the other income schedule. Now, 2017, there's two LLCs that kind of show up out of nowhere. They were formed in Delaware. Delaware is a great jurisdiction for secrecy. And they're called Celtic, Capri, and Giacopa. Giacopa, I believe, is Jill's maiden name. And poof, $10 million worth of income. Okay. How does Joe get that? Well, if you're reading the articles written from the mainstream pieces by the 27-year-old liberal arts majors, they're saying, this was book royalties and speeches. Okay, well, let's take a look at that. Now, of course, 2017 is the year with Burisma and the year with Sinohawk and Bobulinski and all that. That was the hot year. One of these people said that, this is Forbes magazine, $9.5 million was book advances. All right, let's look at that. Say a book sells for $15. I mean, then again, it's a Joe Biden book. You probably don't even want to spend that much for it. And you divide $15 into $9.5 million. This would mean you'd have to sell 633,000 copies of a book. 50,000 is a bestseller. Gone with the Wind did not sell that much in its first printing. It's absolutely insane. Now, then you say, well, he really did have this income. Well, you look at the tax returns again. There's a classification known as self-employment income. I pay it. I work for an LLC. And, when I receive income, whatever I get, I have to pay what's known as a self-employment tax. It's attributable to my services. And Joe would be in this similar situation if this is what he's doing. But his self-employment income that year, which is ostensibly his speaking and his book tours, is $145,000, which would seem kind of reasonable for a guy like Joe Biden. Would you pay him anything more? And then you ask yourself, why, pray tell, do you need to start not one, not two, but three Delaware LLCs, the third one being Sinohawk? Sinohawk is the one that Bobulinski, Tony Bobulinski headed, in order to, quote-unquote, shield you from whatever in the heck you're doing. This is not necessarily transparency. Now, 2017 and 2018 Joe doesn't think he's getting back in the game, So 2018 is $3.2 million. His self-employment income goes up a little bit. Whatever the deal was taking place, might have had its best behind it. And then when he decides to run Lee Elci in 2019, his other income mysteriously drops to $228,000. I mean, why doesn't he just accept this income? The fact of the matter is he doesn't. And what really, and I'll just give you this one thought because I know you've got a ton of questions. If this, where I get very, very angry at the Republicans, Ronna McDaniel the other day was absolutely vapid with Chris Wallace when he was asking these questions. Why aren't they asking, well, hey, Chris, hey, whoever, why don't you look at the correlation between this bulbous amount of $10 million in 2017 and all this activity and put two and two together, or at least let him explain why this happened. I mean, I'm going to go out and make $10 million this year. Why? Because I can? No, I can't next year because I can't. It's absolutely positively insane. No one's seeing it. No one's asking the questions. And it's as plain as the Roman ugly nose on my face. Your ball, my friend.
Well, okay, so middle-class Joe lives, from what I understand, in one of the most wealthy areas in one of the biggest, most expensive houses, in this gated community that he lives in. And, you just pointed out how he put together some money, but even that amount of money that you just mentioned doesn't seem to gel with the amount of money he actually appears to have. So, that what you had said, okay, so I see it doesn't sound good. It doesn't pass the smell test. But I got to think if Joe is willing to do these kinds of what I consider crooked deals towards the end here, he must have been doing them from the beginning. I mean, does anybody know how much Joe Biden's worth?
You hear different things. I mean, what happened was the night of the debate, all of his tax returns were up on that page, and he said it, going back to whatever in the heck it was, and I thought, well, great, I'll look at this in the morning. When I got there in the morning, they had disappeared, so they've got the moving target. And then for him to say at the debate, well, I've never taken, a dollar from a foreign government. Well, no, pal, maybe you haven't, but any one of your three LLCs seem to have taken quite a bit. It is a word game. It's semantics. No, it's they keep pulling in the reins and they keep showing less and less out there.
All right, so you saw some of these allegations, at least here at the end, with his son and kicking money back up to the pops. And how can we find out for sure if any of that stuff is actually accurate?
It's difficult, and the biggest thing is that it's having a Delaware corporation. The only thing you get is the name and the registrant. And Sinahawk, which is the one that Bob Alinsky did, that too is in Delaware. I think it only comes down to people being willing to answer. Now, of course, the other thing is people have to be willing to question and challenge. He has to hear the drumbeat. Ronna McDaniel ain't cutting it, and I mean, it's other than saying that, there's the obsession with these emails and things. Yeah, that's there, but really that has nothing to do. It's not disinformation when all of a sudden your income goes, through the roof. And why does your income go through the roof? The only possible way you can do this, Joe Biden cannot sing in Caesar's Palace by selling whoever Joe Biden was, because his self-employment income from writing and speaking is a mere fraction of what he's receiving.
So if I set up an LLC, Tony, is that just a fancy way for me to hide? I can hide all kinds of different things? You
can. I mean, it's not evil in and of itself, but if he was really like, quote-unquote, a writer and a speaker and wanted to keep everything above the table so everybody could see it, he wouldn't be running money through an LLC. And, of course, the other thing is, what kind of services did he do for purposes of this LLC? Was he actually working? And there is something known as self-employment tax, which sort of flows off of an LLC. If that's the case, he's cheated the government to 15.3% of at least $13.2 million. That's a little bit difficult to get at because he's not making any admission as to, quote unquote, the services that caused him to get this $10 million in one year and 3.2 in the other.
What makes Delaware sort of lax when it comes to the LLCs? You said it's a nice...
I think it's an attractiveness feature because Connecticut has, as one example, you can go to something called Concord, you can look at the records, you can see who's involved, and then you can play that down. It's a little bit difficult, but the information is there. Delaware, for some reason, and I've never really studied the history, has always liked to have the secrecy sort of thing, or at least be able to do secrecy. I mean, largely because I think they want corporate money to go there, and this is one way that they do it. Again, it's not inherently dishonest, but dishonest things do happen.
We're talking to Tony D. Every Tuesday we chat with him about a number of different things, and you've tried to actually alert some of the folks on the right about this, and nobody wants to hear it, do they?
Well, no, and the thing is, it is a question that needs to be answered. It's like, why these LLCs and why this money? And, Biden can only go talking into his mask for so long.
Right.
It's the kind of thing that, you're on the 1 yard line, and you can't keep playing the same game and hope it sticks. And what did Ross Perot say? Idiocy is doing the same thing twice and expecting a different result.
Right. We always talk about this, like how somebody who's making $160,000 a year can go in essentially, not broke, but go in as a middle class person and come out worth 20, 30 million. I've been telling everybody to watch Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, since we're all sort of doing this now and social media is out there and we can follow what everybody does. If you remember, she couldn't pay her rent when she first started as a sitting United States congressman. I want to see what happens to her wealth if she's in there for 10 years. I mean, somebody like that, if she's worth 15 or 20 million, explain how that happens if you're making that kind of money. Unless you're writing, like you said, buckets of books that are bestsellers, and even then, how does it happen?
Well, and your book sales are never going to get into it. You sell your influence in order for people to put things together, because all you've really got is your influence. I mean, you never were really that talented. You weren't a rocket scientist. You didn't have the cure for leukemia. So you're able to grant access to those at the highest level. I mean, as an aside, Kamala Harris, she made $2.5 million in 2019 from DLA Piper, a law firm where she's a partner. Why do they have her as a partner? I'm sure she's working very hard at the law firm. No, it's a conduit for influence, and it's a way for people to, quote unquote, have access to her. A lot of money, you better believe it, but there's a lot more money because of that salary being paid and that influence.
Sneaky, very sneaky. Hey, next week when we talk, it will be the day, my friend. It will be
unbelievable, and I can't even think about or promise what we're going to speak about, because there's going to be so much happening between now and then. I think my biggest concern is I get very angry at these politicians who are constantly throwing this stuff out at you, and they're wonderful and they're going to save us from all harm, and they're just murdering free enterprise, and that is the part that troubles me the most.